Begg is from the European Institute at the London School of Economics. He's joining us now from the British capital. Professor Begg, good to have you with us here on the News Hour. So will this row escalate, do you think? I mean, what incentive is there for either side to back down at this point?
Well, there are many incentives to back down, not the least of which is that the French do enjoy their seafood. So I think there will be a temptation on the part of French consumers to say to their governments, come on, let's sort this out, because we don't want to go to our favourite restaurants in Paris or elsewhere and be deprived of the seafood we want. That said, fishing is a very sensitive industry on both sides of the English Channel. Though, in fact, the boats in question are Scottish, like me. And what's been going on is the legacy of Brexit negotiations, which led to the Trade and Comprehensive Agreement and Cooperation Agreement in December 2020, which still leaves a whole range of things to be done. If you remember the slogan that Boris Johnson had in his election campaign in 2019, it was "Get Brexit done." Well, I have to tell you that Brexit is far from done, and fishing is one of the bits of unfinished business. Both sides are posturing a bit. Both sides have very specific constituencies they're answering to: the French fishing industry on the French side of the channel, and the British industry throughout the British Isles, both saying we want to fish in the same waters. The irony in all of this is that on both sides of the channel, the fishing industry, as a proportion of the respective economies, is minute, around 1/10 of a percentage point of GDP. But they have such political significance to both sides, it's no surprise to see this flaring up.
Yeah, and it's the fishing industry, of course, has been quite totemic of people's desire to want to leave the EU, to take back control, as they said. But obviously the fishing industry was heavily subsidised by the European Union on the British side, and I think as well on the French side. And you mentioned these sort of domestic audiences that both governments are playing to, because there is an election coming in France, isn't there, soon? Do you think that those who are going out to vote for Macron or Le Pen or Zemmour, whoever is running for president, will be interested in this fishing dispute? Does it show a little French strength, do you think?
Very much so, because any French presidential candidate has to be seen to be standing up for French interests. And defining fishing as a French interest is something that many French presidents have done in the past. They're also aware of the fact that the fishing industry has quite strong powers of protest. They can block ports, they can block roads. And many French politicians will be uneasy about doing something that turns their own fishing industry against them. Hence this interest in portraying Britain as the villain in the piece. And much the same happens on the UK side. We saw it with various stages of the Brexit negotiations, where the fishing industry was very vocal in saying, here's what we want. So on both sides, it's something that resonates very much with these very narrowly defined constituencies.
And Professor Begg, in your first answer, you were kind of optimistic at finding a way out of this, saying that people in Paris wouldn't want to not have their scallops or whatever seafood they're getting. But we must remember, of course, that this is a guess about those permits to fish in British waters. They haven't, on the French side, at least, been given out yet. And there is obviously that money that's meant to be given for stopping migration across the channel. So just explain to us how you see a climb down coming from either side for this.
Well, there's already one step towards a climb down, which is that the island of Jersey has agreed to issue more fishing permits. They've been blocking them up to now. Most of the new ones are going to be temporary, which isn't going to deal with the problem fundamentally, but that at least shows the first stages of a willingness to discuss this. Boris Johnson is also tied down in one respect in his response, because he's very keen to get a good deal at the COP26 conference in the next couple of weeks in Glasgow. He wants Macron on board for that, so he will have to be very careful about how he handles this fishing dispute. So I think you can see wider political considerations coming into this. Having said all that, it is a negotiation. It's a negotiation which so far is really between France and the UK and not between the EU and the UK, and you don't really see much support coming from other EU countries for the French position. So I see a basis for a resolution of this, but it's one that's going to be uncomfortable, and we'll probably see more episodes of conflict between the two sides, France and the UK, over the coming months, particularly in light of the French presidential elections, as you said.
Right. Okay, Professor Ian Begg from the London School of Economics, appreciate your analysis. Thanks for being with us.